Alright guys, let's go ahead and get started. I want to remind you, test day is going to be on Friday this week. So that means all of your missing assignments need to be taken care of. Your incompletes, we've got quite a few of them that are out there, whether that would be the essay or the turnitin.com associated with it, or the corrections that are associated with that. You need to get that in. The essay probably needs to be in by tomorrow for sure. That way. Otherwise, there's just not going to be enough turnaround time in order for you to get all that other stuff back to you by Thursday. Sound good? To get all the other assignments that are associated with it back and done by Thursday. So tomorrow's your hard date with that essay. We got some word of the day stuff that's out there. You guys need to take care of that. I'm going to have a couple of you got a few moments at the end of class today. Hopefully, there's missing bell work quizzes. I'm going to have a couple of you take those. TED Eds, I've got a few of those that are missing. Factness quiz, Crusade quiz, we may take care of that. Those that are missing, those as well. And then our essay corrections. There's a few of you that didn't turn in essay corrections that did complete the essay. You need to get those to me as soon as possible. Otherwise, no go on the test, and that'd be a 0 on the test day. Okay? So make sure you take care of those. All right, the schedule for the week today, we're going to talk about OPEC. Take some notes on that. We will do word of the day today. Tomorrow and Wednesday will be review days, and a couple review days because the length of the unit is so long on the Middle East, and it gives us an opportunity to look at it a little bit more in depth, get ourselves prepared. Test day will be Thursday, and then Friday will be a corrections day. We will have an opportunity to read after our corrections the last chapter of Factfulness. We do have a Factfulness quiz on Tuesday. It will be cumulative. We're probably going to have 20 questions from other chapters in the past, so make sure that you're ready for that. Reread some of the questions that you've had on that list. I think that would be a good refresher. I know I don't have Quizlets available for all the other chapters. Haven't got around to creating those quite yet, but the questions are still there and available for you. Let's see. On Friday as well, after we get done with our tests, you get an opportunity to start studying for our next map quiz as well, which will be on Southeast Asia. Sound good? So we'll have that before we go for break as well. So that'll be next week sometime. All right, let's. You may have any questions about our schedule for the week? Nope. Okay. What does OPEC stand for? OPEC. Good test question for Thursday. OPEC. Cameron. Oh, Google is a good source to find answers. Miss Greta? Yeah, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Okay, so it's all about oil, but the O doesn't stand for oil. Everybody take note of that because it's going to ask you a question. What does OPEC stand for? And one of the answer options, or a couple of the answer options, has oil for O. And everybody knows that OPEC's about oil, so oil must obviously be what is O, but it's not. O stands for organization. The oil component is petroleum. Petroleum is another word for oil. Sound good? So don't be that guy that says that O stands for oil. It's not. ISIS. What does ISIS stand for? Cameron? I'm sorry, Carson?
Islamic State of Iraq and Syria.
Yep, Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Bubakar al-Baghdadi. Weird. What does that stand for? That's good. Yep, and who's weird? We are, right? So we go off and start calling these other cultures around the world as weird. We got to be careful. That kind of reflects our ethnocentric tendencies. Subsearch PS. What does Subsearch PS stand for, Ms. Plattner? Yep, and what's the two most important ones? Yep, that'll contribute to our high level of comprehension. NATO. Mentioned NATO the other day when we started talking about Turkey and the relationship. We were mentioning the Kurds, and then Turkey is attacking the Kurds. We say, well, we've been allied with the Kurds in the past, utilize them in the efforts of getting rid of ISIS. But then Turkey's attacking the Kurds, and they're an ally of us as well, so that kind of creates a predicament. And the question is, well, where did we ever become allies with Turkey? Well, it's NATO. What does NATO stand for? Mr. Plattner? There you go. North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's a Cold War era-esque type of organization. So if you're looking at the big map, this is the Atlantic Ocean. If you guys were not familiar with what was that, the North Atlantic is up here. So that means anything that's up here to the top. So that's European countries, and it does include Turkey and the United States and Canada. Okay. So again, the Cold War was the United States against communism and Russia. So the Soviet bloc and communism, they had their own version of NATO, but it's called something else. I can't remember what it's called. All right, any questions about our bell work? Let's do our word of the day. Today, with our word of the day. We are doing affect, effect. I'm not sure if you guys can see those on the board now. We did there, and there last week. Now this week we got affect, effect. Commonly misused. I think if I had to highlight a word that's misused, mistakenly mixed up more than any other, as a teacher and referencing you guys' work, it's probably affect, effect. So we're going to use that as our work on that in class. Affect with an A is verb. Sound good? You're using it as a verb. You could say something like, the cold weather outside affected my health. Right? It affected my health. It's used as, a verb there. Or I was affected by the tragic events of the past weekend. Right? Affected by it. So that would be a verb. Affect with an E is used as a noun. The effect of inattentiveness in class contributed to the students' low test scores. Right? The effect. So that would be with an E because it's used as a noun. Okay? Anytime you have a participle in front of it, and or the, then it's going to be E with a noun version there. All right, convoke is our word of the day. It means to convene, to summon, to bring together is the idea. Antonym, to disperse. The chairman decided to convoke a meeting to discuss the company's budget issue. He's got to get there. You can see he's got a little hop in his step. One more synonym. To convene, to summon, to bring together. What we got, Miss Scott? To gather. To gather. I think about, getting close to the holiday season. Not quite there yet. No Christmas music quite yet. But the Grinch, where the community members, they convene around the Christmas tree, right? Christmas morning. It's good community spirit there. Antonyms. To disperse. Hadley? Dismantle, I guess. Maybe what the Grinch is trying to do there. Dismantle. Mascot? Separate. Separate. Part of speech. Mr. Folks. It is a verb. It's an action. Let that guy get to work. It's an action. Disperse. I'm sorry. Separate. Separate. All right. Our sentence context. Miss Vance actually shared this with me just last hour. Thought I'd share it with you guys as well. The title of the article is, attention students, put your laptops away. It says, as laptops become smaller and more ubiquitous, and with the advent of tablets, the idea of taking notes by hand just seems old-fashioned to many students today. Typing your notes is faster, which comes in handy when there's a lot of information to take down. But it turns out there are still advantages to doing things the old-fashioned way. For one thing, research shows that laptops, tablets have a tendency to be distracting. It's so easy to click over to Facebook and that dull lecture. I imagine you guys aren't doing Facebook, but other things. And the study's shown that the fact that you have to be slower when you take notes by hand is what makes it more useful in the long run. In a study published by the Psychological Science, this woman, Pam Miller, of Princeton University, sought to test how note taken by hand or by computer affects learning. When people type their notes, they have this tendency to try to take verbatim notes and write down as much of the lecture as they can. Miller says, The students who were taking longhand notes in our studies were forced to be more selective because you can't write as fast as you can type. And the extra processing of the material that they were doing benefited them. So what it means is you write things down with paper pencil, your comprehension goes up. You're flexing your mental muscles a little bit more there. Sound good? If you want to do well on the test, paper pencil is the way to go. Sound good? So it's not just your teacher telling you. There's scientific research that would suggest otherwise. Alright, that's our sentence context. Make sure you got affect, effect. Use one of them appropriately, spelled appropriately in your sentence. Make sure you got convoke in your sentence. Take a moment to do that. Go ahead and share your sentence person next to you, please. Listen for affect. Effect. Make sure you spell it out.
I don't know. That's why you use impact.
What? That's why you use impact.
Instead of effect or effect.
If you're using impact, then that would be affect with an A, because it's a verb. Impact is a verb. Well, I guess you could say it impacted, yeah, the impact, yeah.
That's why.
That's true.
Okay, I use effect for mine, so I hope that's right.
Use it as a verb with an A.
Note taking by hand can affect.
What?
Note taking by hand can affect.
Yeah. Alright, Cheyenne, what do you got?
The thought of use of pencil and paper has convoked throughout the U.S. and didn't affect their thoughts.
It did not affect their thoughts. Did not affect. So what spelling do we have here? A or an E? A is the correct answer. Did not affect. That's a verb. It is a verb. It is not a noun in that context. Okay? Alright. Sheet of notebook paper, paper, pencil, just like the research suggests. Put your Chromebooks away. These slides are posted on the website, so if we go through what we're doing here, Carson, put the Chromebook away, please. Paper, pencil. If you don't have one, maybe ask a peer. What? Yeah. Again, notes are posted on the website. Want to go back, take note of. Especially got a lot of maps and graphs today. You can go back and take the time to analyze them a little bit on your own. Okay. So OPEC is really what we're looking at mostly today. So we're going to write that as the title of our notes. Again, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. You already got that written down in your bell work. But talk about oil today and who's got all the oil. Here's our objectives. Identify the top oil producing countries of the world. We're going to list the top 3. That's going to be our first main point. Who's got all the oil? Who produces all the oil? And then analyze the control of OPEC over various world economies. We're going to think about how oil was used as a weapon over the course of the 20th century. Evaluate U.S. consumption of oil resources. How do we compare with our consumption rates versus the consumption rates of other countries around the world? And then I hypothesize the future of the U.S. concerning the depletion of available oil resources. What happens? Oil is a non-renewable resource. Means there's a limited supply out there. What happens when you run out?
You run out.
You run out, right? And that's it. We just all talk about it. We ran out of oil. Some old bellwork questions from the past. We already answered the first one. If there's a low supply of oil and a high demand for oil, we got a low supply. There's not much of it. Everybody wants it. What happens to the price of oil? It goes way up, okay? So, these OPEC member states, countries that became part of this organization, they kind of realized that that's the basis behind OPEC. Control the supply of oil, right? They're the oil producing countries of the world. They get together in a meeting. They say, hey, let's limit the amount of oil. Let's not go off on our own and, be these highly motivated people and try to produce as much oil as we can. Let's control it, right? And only produce so much, right? These other countries out there in the rest of the world, they want oil. We know that they do, right? So the supply, we're going to keep it low. The demand's really high. Now, the oil, the small amount that we do have, when we sell it, what can we sell it for?
Lots of money.
Lots and lots of money. We're gonna make bank off of it. Okay. So the alternative, what if there was these other countries out there that weren't a part of OPEC and they started producing so much oil, the supply went really, really high and overran demand? What happens to the price of oil? It goes down. Okay. So how would a depletion of oil resources change your life? So we need to answer these two questions. Why do we need so much oil? Ms. Brzezinski.
We use it for a lot of daily activities.
Man, what would those daily activities be?
Gas.
Gas.
Driving.
Okay, for transportation purposes. I always think about, there was a point in time in American history where we had, we could have gone down one of two paths, right? I think it was under the Eisenhower administrations before there was life before interstates. We take for granted the interstate system that's out there, right? Go to Goodfield, get on the interstate, drive long ways really fast, okay? That wasn't always there. In the 1950s, they really didn't have the interstate system established, okay? Or the 1940s, 1950s, it was all two-lane highways before that. Eisenhower had a decision to make. Do we want to go with mass transportation and create like trains, like high-speed rail, and make that the option for transportation, go from one place to the next across the country? Or do we want to do the interstates? Of course, we went with the interstate side. The question is kind of why? Why go with the interstate? Why not go with the mass transit idea that they did? It's really a reflection of culture. From my perspective, it's an American ideal. Freedom, right? American culture is all about freedom. What does that mean? That means, it's reflecting the automobile. You can go wherever you want, whenever you want, because of the automobile. Everybody got that? Right? That's who we are as Americans. Right? And so, that's why we went that direction. Rather than have to rely upon a train to get you someplace, we like the idea of individuality and freedoms that way. So, what do we use oil for other than, anybody got other ideas besides transportation? Yeah? Tools. Okay. What do you mean tools? These tools that are made up of? Okay, so you use it for a lubrication, right? To keep those things running, like motors as well, other than tools. Yep, what else?
Use it for like every base of a toothpaste.
Okay, it's in a lot of products that we wouldn't necessarily assume it to be in. Okay? Like cosmetics.
Ew.
Makeup.
Really?
Really. Yep, really. This one, you got a plastic black bag here, but all plastics are contingent upon oil. Imagine the ramifications of that for a second. What if we don't have plastic?
We have more oil.
Well, I guess that's one way of thinking about it. What I'm thinking about is all the devices and instruments, tools, toys that we have that's contingent upon it's got made up of plastic. We can use those things. We can buy those things because plastic makes it cheap, right? If it didn't have that plastic component into it, what happens to the price of those products? They go way up, okay? So it makes our life a little bit easier because of that, okay? So things can change quite drastically there. Makeup, I don't want to necessarily say how that would affect things, but oh well.
Oh, will she stop doing that?
All right, transportation. So this is a given. We use oil for driving our cars. Tyler was mentioning this, that we use it for lubrication purposes for our tools and our motors. So that's not how you put oil in your car. Just want to make sure that we emphasize this. Want to make sure you don't make that mistake if you don't know how to put oil in your car.
Just don't put on the engine.
Yeah, may want to ask somebody before you do that. We also use it for construction. A lot of oil when it comes to constructing railroads. Okay? Alright. First main point. Leading producers of oil in the world. Leading producers of oil. So we got a top 3 here. Looking at the chart. Who's the top 3 oil producers in the world? Who's number 1?
Russia.
Saudi Arabia.
Good try.
America.
The United States.
America.
We produce more oil than any other country in the world. So the other 2 behind us are Russia and Saudi Arabia. So this chart gives you a progression from 1996 to 2018, so a large window. So you can see how the United States for many, many years was actually way down here, right? Well behind Russia and Saudi Arabia. But since 2012, we got a great big growth there, okay? What happened here? That's true, but what happened to cause the increase? There's a process that started being used,
Fracking.
fracking. Right, fracking out to the side of the United States there. So that has led to an exponential increase in growth and oil production over the past 10 years. Okay, then you probably have some environmental restrictions that leads to a small dip there, and then that's probably underneath the Obama administration, and now it comes back because those restrictions are taken away. This box right here is amplified here, so this is what that looks bigger. Okay, because it's all really close. So number 2 on the list is Russia, and then Saudi Arabia is number 3 on the list. This chart is a little bit dated. See that it's 2013. I like this chart though. It gives us an idea of what are the other countries that are out there that are the leading producers of oil in the world. Okay, and you can also see how it's changed. Russia was at the top, then Saudi Arabia, then the United States, and now it's different. But the next countries on the list are Iran, China, Canada, Iraq, UAE, Venezuela, and Mexico. So not all the countries are in the Middle East either. So I think that's eye-opening, something to consider. This particular chart, I like this as well because it gives us an idea of who's the leading producer of oil in that particular region of the world. How much more do they produce than the countries in that region? So this is the Middle East right here. You can see that Saudi Arabia produces not like twice as much as everybody else, but it's like 3 or 4 times as much as everybody else in the Middle East. Sometimes when we look at the Middle East, we have a tendency to go back to our stereotypical type of patterns. And we say, well, it's the Middle East. They produce a ton of oil. But the reality is, it's Saudi Arabia that is producing so much oil in the Middle East. Everybody good there? Now, the other Middle Eastern countries, they do produce oil, but not near what Saudi Arabia does. Okay? Here in North America, see how much we produce compared to the rest. It's quite a bit bigger. Russia and Asia. I like this one as well because it shows individual countries and whether they're increasing production or decreasing production over a 4-year window between 2008 and 2012. Okay? So you can see of these Middle Eastern countries, Saudi Arabia is increasing, Iraq is increasing, even the UAE, Kuwait, and Oman are increasing oil production. But then down here, you have Qatar, Yemen, Syria, and Iran. They're actually decreasing oil production. What's going on in Syria that would lead to the decrease in production of oil? This is Brzezinski. Civil war, right? You can't, be efficient and effective in how much oil you're producing if you're concerned about a civil war going on at the same time. Okay, things aren't working out. What about Iran? Theirs dropped drastically. Any ideas, explanations there why they would stop producing so much oil? Yeah.
Was it when we were talking about how they started doing more things for the ecosystem, and they started talking bad about other people, about how they're taking planes up or
Well, some people say that this is a more environmentally friendly method by which you can get energy. right? And they start using an alternative to oil. Instead of getting energy from oil, they get it from nuclear energy, right? We talk about enriching uranium and using it for domestic purposes there. Maybe that's their effort in that particular case, okay? All right, so we got a lot of production stats. Now we're going to consumption. So using up oil, consuming oil, okay? So I like this chart as well because not only does it identify the two leading consumers of oil in the world, but it gives you a comparison of what's the rest of the world doing, okay? So blue, you consume a lot of oil. So Russia consumes a lot of oil. India consumes a lot of oil. Saudi Arabia, Iran, France, Germany, Canada. Who's this? Nobody knows. It's Brazil. So they consume a lot of oil, right? But the worst of the worst is black, right? They consume a lot of oil, okay? More than anybody else. So there's two of them on the map. Who's that? That's China, okay? That's, of course, us, the United States, okay? All right, so the question is, if we, this map doesn't necessarily differentiate who consumes more, China or the United States. I'm thinking it may be the United States, but if we use the statistic of per capita, meaning if we divide it by number of people in those countries, like a Hans Rosling statistic that he encouraged you to make sure that you using per capita rather than the overall number, who's consuming more oil, the United States or
Us.
it'd be us, right? Because our population is 0.3 billion and China's population is 1.3 billion. If you divide by 1.3 billion, you're going to get a much, it'd be a much lower number in this particular case than what we have, right? Because we're dividing by a much smaller figure. So we consume per capita a lot more oil. Our high standard of living is kind of contingent upon it, right? Okay, this particular list, I do encourage you to write OPEC member states on the left and then start writing down as many of these countries as you can on the right-hand side. So these are countries that are part of OPEC. I like this chart for a couple different reasons. First off, it helps us to figure out when did OPEC originate. So you can see the dates of when these countries joined OPEC, and it's mostly around the 1960s, 1970s. Sound good? In addition to that, it gives us an opportunity to get past that stereotype that if you're a part of OPEC, you have to be a part of the Middle East, right? You can see that these countries, they come from all over the world. A lot of them are the Middle East. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of them from the Middle East. But not all of them are in the Middle East. You got Africa represented, you got Asia represented, you even got South America represented down here, right? With Venezuela, okay? So you don't have to be a part of the Middle East in order to be in the group, all right, of OPEC. Sound good? So, again, what would be the advantage of joining OPEC? If you get a part of that organization and you can control the supply, what happens?
You can get oil for cheaper.
Well, not necessarily get oil for cheaper, but you can make more money off the oil that you produce. Sounds good? If everybody's on the same page, we're all going to say, hey, this next quarter, this is how much oil we're going to produce. All right, that's going to increase the demand because there's not enough oil out there to meet the demand. So people are going to pay more for it, and then we're going to make bank off of it. Sound good?
Yeah.
So these are those countries that are a part of it, okay? Notice that, is the United States a part of OPEC? No, it's not. All right? Is Russia a part of OPEC? No, at least not on this list, okay? All right, so, again, it's on the website. You can go back and check it out, okay? Now I want to think about using oil as a weapon, okay? When I introduced the idea of using oil as a weapon, initially I think visualizing, and maybe students do as well, getting a gun or a cannon or something and then putting oil in it and then spraying your enemy with oil, right? That's not what we're talking about when we say oil as a weapon. Okay? Let's think about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict for just a second. Okay? Because that took place over the course of the 1960s and 70s. The same time period here we're talking about OPEC. Okay? What side would these OPEC member states be on whenever we talk about the Israelis and Palestinians? Would they support, like these Middle Eastern Arabic countries, would they support the Palestinians or would they support the Israelis? What side would they support? They would support the Palestinian side, right? The United States, the opposition, would support the Israeli side, right? So, if you really think about these Arab countries surrounding Palestine and Israel, they're going to support the Palestinians, and they're going to be fighting the Israelis, but the Israelis are helped out by the United States. Can these Arab countries, the defense, mechanisms that they have, their military equipment personnel, do they have a way of matching up with the United States in the amount of, military defense spending? Can they compete with us? They can't, right? So they can't defeat us because of how much more money we spend on defense. Okay, just not going to happen. So if they can't beat us that way, is there a way in which they could be creative and hurt us and get back at us, for helping the Israelis?
Control the flow of oil into our country.
Exactly. We use a lot of oil. What if they stop exporting oil to the United States? We'd be in trouble. Exactly, and that's what happened. Okay, so it was trying to deter us from helping out the Israelis, right? To slow down our support of the Israelis. So it's happened multiple times. Two of them right here. We'll get one more here in a second. Oil embargo of June 1967. These OPEC member states stop exporting oil to the United States. 1967. What Israeli-Palestinian conflict takes place in 1967? It doesn't last very long. Some of you may have came across it.
Sykes-Picot.
Good try. That's early 20th century.
Something that starts with a D.
No, good try. 6-Day War. Some of you may come across that. So there's a war between the Israelis and Palestinians. It's called the 6-Day War. It doesn't last very long. The Israelis win. Okay? At that point in time, stops exporting oil to the United States. That affected our economy then. Oil crisis of 1973. Another war between the Israelis and Palestinians. 73. It's called the Yom Kippur War. Right? And so they stop exporting oil to the United States. Hurt us again. Okay? Let's go to the next page. 1979. What happens in 1979? The Iranian hostage crisis. Right? Iran stops exporting oil to the United States. Right? It hurts us economically. Okay? So what does it do to us? Some drastic changes here in the United States. We take it for granted that you can go to the gas station, fill up with gas, and then get out of there. When these oil embargoes took place, there wasn't enough gas to go around for everybody. So you had to limit how much gas you were selling in the American economy. So based upon your license plate number, whether you ended in ended in a even number or an odd number, that determined what days that you could purchase gas. Right? So if you ended in an even number, maybe you got to purchase gas on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If you got an odd number with your license plate, then maybe you got Tuesday, Thursdays. Okay? Violated the rule, you got in trouble. Okay? The other thing was they would establish like speed limits, like low speed limits, like 45-mile-an-hour speed limits. Because if you went faster than that, you're wasting gas. Right? Blow down the road 70 miles an hour. People see that at that point in time, they'd accuse you of being un-American, right? Wasting all the gas that way. So, discourage you from doing that. So what would happen to the gas stations? You go in and get out. At these times, when there's a limited amount of oil, the lines to get in to get gas would be like around the gas station, out the gas station, around the corner. You'd have to wait for like an hour or 2 hours just to get gas, right? So it definitely had an effect on our way of life, and the things that we did, the way that we approached things, okay? Other things that it did, it made us start looking for other sources of oil. Instead of importing it from these Middle Eastern OPEC member states, we look at the Gulf of Mexico, look at Alaska, drill for oil there. Or we look for alternative sources of energy. Instead of using it to power our power plants, maybe we look at wind power, solar power, things like that. The oil weapon in the 1970s, really strong with OPEC, okay? Mentioned the oil crisis in 1979 with the Iranian hostage crisis. Problems in the 1980s. OPEC started to lose power. Some of these OPEC member states, they didn't exactly follow the rules that they established. They started going off on their own, started producing more and more oil. Supply got too high. What happens? The price drops, right? So not as powerful in the 1980s. Today, it's kind of that way. Saudi Arabia's gone off on its own. You can see how much more Saudi Arabia produces than the other Middle Eastern countries around it. Because of that, price of oil's dropped, right? It's actually cheaper. You know, we talk about, what do you call that? Where your money doesn't go as far as it used to. Inflation. If you take inflation into account, gas is actually cheaper today than it was like 25 years ago, right? 25, 30 years ago. It's actually cheaper today if you take inflation into account. We complain about high gas prices, but it's really actually fairly cheap. Yes?
When they had like the limits on when you could get oil or gas or anything, did they also have a restriction on engines that were allowed to come imported?
I'm not sure if they had restrictions on like the size. At that point in time, you know, everybody was big into, you know, having these big, strong motors. Yeah, and that kind of contradicts the American ideal because, you know, that's
that was also when the box body was
right.
big.
So you may have some countries, you know, the United States included there, start looking for, you know, cheaper built cars that have longer gas mileage, right?
It's like a V6.
Right, exactly. So that may be where a lot of the changes came from. Yep. All right. That's it for today. Does anybody have any questions or thoughts? I encourage you to take a few moments to look through the questions on factfulness and read through the chapter. Get yourself prepared for that quiz, okay? It is.